Bar owners on Cape Town's famed Long Street say they are intimidated by gangster bosses into paying so-called protection money. Now, it's been a long-standing issue in the city. Now, after one bar owner recently spoke out, South Africa's police minister appointed a special committee to crack down on the racketeering. DW's correspondent Adrian Krish met the man believed to be the kingpin of organised crime in Cape Town.
Cape Town's Long Street is the city's main nightlife district, full of bars and restaurants. It's been tough here since the coronavirus pandemic hit. Many businesses have had to close. Customers are staying away.
Businesses here in Cape Town are suffering because of the economic consequences of the lockdown. There's a night curfew in place every day from midnight. International tourists will only be allowed back in the country on 1st of October. But this is not the only problem. Some business owners are complaining that despite the economic hardship, they still have to pay protection money.
The Beerhouse on Long Street has since reopened, but the bar's owner, Randolph Jorberg, is currently stuck in Germany, mostly because South Africa's borders are closed, but also because he's afraid. He's refused to pay protection money. And as chairman of the Long Street Association, business owners are sending him more and more pictures of visits from gangsters demanding money. It's clear the traditional protection racket for nightclubs isn't working the way it used to.
Some well-dressed, wide-shouldered, visibly armed gentlemen are paying you a visit and offering you protection for a danger that they can't really describe. They ask you for monthly payment, and you will only experience getting increased levels of intimidation if you decide not to take up their offer.
Jorberg and his employees have received anonymous death threats. The Beerhouse has seen what happens when people don't pay for protection. On the front door, there's a picture of a former bouncer called Joe. He was stabbed to death 4 years ago.
I wouldn't dare to speak out if I was in Cape Town right now. I do enjoy the fact that I am out of the country here in Berlin, to giving me the freedom to speak out on behalf of a big business community in Cape Town.
For years, the police appear to have done little, but that could be changing. The country's police minister has contacted Jorberg directly. He visited Long Street last week and announced a task force to deal with the protection racket problem.
There is a visible policing head here. That's why there will be detectives and all that kind of thing. Maybe let's leave the operations on the steering committee and allow them to do the work.
Just one day later, the man who Jorberg says he believes is behind the protection racket organized free food distribution for the homeless, directly in front of the Beerhouse bar. On his Facebook page, businessman Nafiz Modack posted pictures of infamous gangsters like Al Capone. His line of business apparently includes debt collection, the sale of luxury automobiles, and protection for VIPs. But in front of the Beerhouse, only a man calling himself a friend of Modack's could be found. He also apparently runs a security firm.
You've heard about the allegations of business people here that Mr. Modack is behind the protection money issue. What is he saying to that?
Look, I can only say what I've seen on the internet. Look, I haven't heard anything about it. I've heard it, I've read it in the newspapers and stuff like that, but it's an allegation, it's not a fact. I haven't seen it myself, I haven't been involved in it, so I don't know anything about it.
Moments later, there is suddenly a lot of movement in Long Street. First of all, a Porsche pulls up, carrying one of Modack's business associates.
So right now, various cars showed up here with a lot of strong people, obviously his bodyguards, and now Mr. Modack also showed up.
They're scenes reminiscent of a Hollywood film. Surrounded by his entourage, Nafiz Modack briefly observes the food distribution. Then he asks the Beerhouse staff whether it's okay for them to distribute food at the door. We attempt to make contact.
Why did you decide to give food out right here?
From today and before lockdown and few months back. That's all.
But why
Any
right
other comment you can speak to him.
But why right in front
Because
here?
I had to meet him here for something. You can confirm with him. He's a manager. Thank you.
Modack and his entourage move on. A few minutes later, the police turn up. After these events, the Beerhouse manager applied for a court order to stop Modack from entering the bar again. But Modack himself is probably not concerned. In February, a court cleared him of extortion charges due to a lack of evidence or witnesses.